Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February meeting of Council, our first formal Council meeting for 2026. To start the official proceedings, I acknowledge that we meet today on Jara country, of which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation, and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. Welcome to those watching online. So present, we have Councillors Hastwell, Maddock, Cordy, Anea, Walker, and myself, and the full executive team. Apologies, Councillor Maltby and Councillor Driscoll. Do we have any declarations of interest or conflicts of interest?
Mayor, I'd just like to declare a conflict of interest, a general conflict of interest to the item 9.3.1.
Thank you, Chief. Look, just before we proceed, I just wanted to make a note, given this is our first meeting of the year and that there wasn't a meeting in January, and of course the fires in Harcourt, Ravenswood, Walmer and surrounding districts have had such a profound impact on our shire, to acknowledge the pain and suffering experienced in those communities and that the recovery is long and ongoing and uneven. I'd like to acknowledge the tremendous work of the CFA and other emergency services responders who operated in that period of intense activity on January the 9th and in the days and weeks following. I also want to make the point that as Mayor, I'm immensely proud of the work of this organisation, of the councillor team, but especially the executive, the managers, the coordinators and the officers. Over 50 staff from the Shire have been involved directly in working to serve those communities. 20 of our staff were directly impacted in those fires and another 30 or more indirectly impacted by the fires. We've noted, or we've all reflected on the enormous community response throughout the Shire. We are a very interconnected Shire. Many of the evacuees found temporary residence with friends and family in the Shire, and that's something that is heartening for us. But of course, the challenges are ongoing. I'm really grateful to the community for all their efforts in fundraising and supports, both formal and informal, that continue to occur throughout the Shire and especially around Harcourt and that fire ground. However, I think it's worth noting that the recovery and the long-term effects of those fires are going to be with us here in this chamber for a considerable time, and of course with those communities for a very long time. And this will impact our workload and our budgets over the coming months and years. I also want to note the fantastic cooperation and collaboration we've had with state and federal governments and their agencies. And that's both sides of politics. It's been really tremendous, the response that we've enjoyed in the Shire. So moving on to section 4, confirmation of minutes. Do we have a mover to confirm the minutes of our council meeting from 16th of December 2025?
I'll move that way, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. And do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Walker, would you read the recommendation, please?
Yes, Mayor. The recommendation is that the minutes of the meeting of Mount Alexander Shire Council held on 16th December 2025 be confirmed.
Thank you. All those in favour and against? Thanks, that's carried. Acknowledgements, we have none now. Public time. So we do have some questions that have been submitted to us. So we'll need to suspend standing orders. Will someone move that we suspend standing orders? Thank you, Councillor Anea.
I move to suspend standing orders.
Thank you. And we have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. All those in favour and against? Carried. Okay, public time. I'll begin with the printed questions. The first question from Matthew Carpenter. According to the governance rules, section 12.1.6, item L, which is that this is a matter that the chairperson, myself, considers has been previously responded to or is repetitive of other questions asked or statements made. As I say, this matter has been dealt with through formal correspondence issued to you on 12th of December 2025 by the CEO. So I'll move on to the next question, and Councillor Maddock, would you like to read the next question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is a question from Lisa Shaw of the Mount Alexander Greens. Mount Alexander Shire charges additional rates for vacant residential land 200% of the general rate. What has been the impact of this additional rate in improving housing availability in the Shire?
Can I ask Director Landy to respond to that, please?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Lisa, for your question. While I can say that Council continues to see consistent, albeit modest, decrease in vacant land properties and continued growth in residential and farm properties, and the intention of the vacant land differential is to drive development of vacant land, data is not actually available to directly evidence the impact of the vacant land differential. As stated in your question, Mount Alexander Shire applies a 200% differential on rates for vacant land, and this has actually been the practice for more than 15 years. So there is no recent data to provide a comparison of vacant land property numbers with and without the 200% differential applied. Therefore, I can't provide objective comparison figures in response to this question.
Thank you, Director. Ian Higgins, would you like to read your question, or do you want me to read it? You'll read it? Great. Just come to the microphone, please. Yes, please.
Speak directly into the microphone. Okay, thanks for hearing me. I'm representing the Friends of Campbells Creek Landcare Group. As a group, we are extremely concerned about last year's proposal from Council's levy bank project for earthen levies. These would have a permanent devastating impact on Castlemaine's urban waterways, as they're known. Our township's community has led the restoration of these waterways for 40 years and transformed a wasteland into today's well-loved environmental asset. The Friends alone have invested around $2 million in cash and in kind. In 2001, Council saw the value of our vision for the urban waterways, investing in our initiative for a walking and cycling trail, and in 2012 partnered with two landcare groups to jointly manage the waterways, commissioning the 2018 Urban Waterways Management Plan and developing a memorandum of understanding that formalised that partnership. The Commonwealth Government, knowing the excellent track record of Council in partnership with community, recently invested a further $2 million in two urban rivers and catchments projects to further improve the urban waterways, and these are happening with significant council involvement. We now understand the levy bank project needs to redesign the proposed levies because the 2025 designs will exacerbate flood impacts. This redesign is an opportunity for the 2026 levy proposals to align with the aims of the federally funded Platypus Patch and Forest Creek revitalisation projects, and avoid degrading the waterways and their flora and fauna guaranteed listed vegetation and species, including the platypus. There are alternative levy options that do not have such an impact. For example, sheet piling, which already forms a small portion of the levy bank project plans. We believe we, the Friends of Campbell's Creek, can, in the spirit of the collaborative partnership, help Council take this 2026 levy redesign opportunity so the proposals best achieve the purpose of the management plan, which is to improve and protect community values in the project area while managing risk. So our question is, how can we help Council's redesign to be consistent with Council policies, comply with the Flora and Fauna Guarantee Act, comply with planning scheme requirements, support the $2 million investment by the Commonwealth, strengthen Council's collaborative partnership with the Friends, and avoid imposing an ongoing maintenance task for Council? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask Director Anir to respond to that. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ian and Friends of Campbell's Creek, for your interest and offer of support with regard to the Levy Bank project. Over the life of the Levy Bank project, Council has engaged with the community through a number of sessions, including sessions in person with community meetings, as well as sessions on site at individual locations, as well as along the levy bank, along the river banks or the creek banks of the various levies that are proposed. Following the feedback we've received through this engagement and the community consultation that has been undertaken, further analysis has recently been completed, responding to the requests and the information that has been provided from residents and community groups. Following that completion, Council officers are now preparing to hold community sessions in the coming months to share the updated information and the next steps of the projects. Friends of Campbell's Creek are encouraged to attend these sessions where there will be further opportunity to discuss and for collaboration on the project moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Anir. Are there any other questions from the gallery? Yes, please come forward to the microphone.
Duncan Brown from Guildford. I'm just coming in. Thank you for allowing me to put up something towards the Council's road scheme. We have been underfunding our roads for the past, I don't know, 20 years. 2013 is when I started to say to Council, maybe they should do something about the longitudinal drainage and shoulders. We're getting to a tipping point now, and I saw with some hilarity the other week about the survey that was done, which said most people were happy with the state of the roads, the sealed roads. I don't think so, speaking to people generally, but we have not had a maintenance program on drainage, longitudinal drainage and shoulders for ages. There's been two parts that I've noticed being done. One was the Campbell's Creek Friars, from the Campbell's Creek Friars Road to Friarstown. They did the shoulders on that after three goes at it. You've probably got about 70% of the drainage right. The Muckleford Road, I hadn't been down there for a while. I had noticed one day that they were doing some work on the shoulders there. The same now. The biggest problem is that, yes, they grade the shoulders, put more material on, but they don't bring in the material from the side, so therefore the water can't escape off the roads. This results in the water getting underneath the road pavement, and then you got problems with the actual formation of the road being destroyed through either pavement heaving or pavement sinking. Most of it's pavement sinking around here. And I think that we really need to look at this because it has not been addressed. I have come in it several times every now and then. I saw the asset manager Jasophic, Phil, was it? That was here. And he said, well, we don't have the money. I spoke to Mayor Rosie O'Neill, as she was then, and Glenn Dicker at the roads meeting last year, and explained to them some of the repercussions. We now have couch grass growing into the seal in quite a few of the roads. We've got trees, suckers, whatever you want to call them, growing up within the shoulders, where the shoulders should be. In Yappeen, we've got a point, and I brought this up in September last year, regarding inability to get off the road in Yappeen because of the trees. Now, they need to be trimmed back. They don't need to be removed, except for one which is about 1.2 metres off the road on a corner. But I also mentioned about the drainage alongside that and on the Vaughan Road at Yappeen, the large drain which needs to be fixed. That was mentioned September. Now February, nothing's been done. I noticed one of the locals has obviously knocked a couple of the suckers out along there so they could safely walk the kids along to school or wherever they were going. I think the council really needs to look at this aspect of getting a road right, because we are on a tipping point. There's an aging system. I went down the Yandite Standing Road the other week. Yes, couch grass, yes, crocodile cracking all along part of it. I know it hasn't had any work done to it since I left the Shire. And that was when amalgamation happened. I was with the Shire and Newstead. So I know it's a problem statewide to get the funding, but I think sometimes instead of funding change rooms, lights, upgrading facilities, at some stage we won't be able to get to them because the roads will be in disarray. So if you want to test them out, try dragging caravan along some of these roads, you know, and you will really see what the difference is. In a normal sedan, you won't. But anyhow, I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I'll take that as a comment, and I'm grateful to you for fleshing out those issues for us tonight. Thank you. Can we resume standing orders? Do I have a motion to resume standing orders?
I move to resume standing orders.
Thank you, Councillor Anea, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. All those in favour and against? So item 7, petitions and letters, is 7.1, petition for a dog park in Maldon. Do we have a mover for this? Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. Thank you. Would you like to introduce Councillor Hastwell?
Thanks, Mayor. Council has received a petition on 16th of January 2026 from residents of Maldon with 225 signatures requesting that Council consider a proposal in line with the Tarrangower Tomorrow Community Plan 2021 to 2025 to develop a dog park in Maldon. The petition is shown at confidential attachment 7.1.1. I'd like to move that Council 1, acknowledges receipt of the petition, and 2, receives a report on this petition at the meeting of Council on the 21st of April 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Maddock. All those in favour and against? That's carried. Section 8, committee reports. 8.1 is the North Central Goldfields Regional Library Corporation Board. Do we have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Anea. Would you like to introduce it?
Thank you, Mayor. The North Central Goldfields Regional Library Board reports for its ordinary board meetings on 19th September and 12th of December 2025 are provided for the information of councillors at confidential attachment 8.1.1. These documents are provided for information only and no decision is required. The Director Healthy Communities has provided the attached reports on behalf of the NCGRL Board.
And do we have a motion?
I I move that Council notes the North Central Goldfields Library Corporation Board reports for meetings on 19th September and 12th December 2025.
Thanks, Councillor. And do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Any objections? Okay. Councillor Anir, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Just briefly, because I always will seize the day when libraries are involved. We've got 2 meetings worth of attachments and minutes provided. Have a read. Of particular note, I think, that is publicly available as well. There's a little kind of summary for each branch of the library for each shire. And ours for the Castlemaine Library is always really beautiful. It talks about things that have happened at the Castlemaine Library alongside the different goals of the Library Corporation. And it's also got some nice little vignettes about just nice things that have happened. The only other thing I'll add is that at the December meeting, we had a very, very short AGM beforehand, and I was successfully returned as chair of the Library Board. So that was a nice thing to do. Very last, I've been talking about it for a while, but we will be transitioning to a new entity type very soon. That's pretty exciting. It will kind of see us be compliant with the new Local Government Act, which wrote out regional library corporations, and we will transition before the sunset clause runs out. So that will be coming sometime soon this year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor, and congratulations on being returned as chair of that board. I know it means a lot to you, and I thank you for all your diligence and hard work on that board. Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Just really briefly, to echo Rosie's sentiments, the libraries offer such a valuable service to communities generally, but particularly to ours, where we're often lacking in some kinds of services. And I find myself incidentally there all the time chasing toilets for kids and then ending up in there reading books or participating in art exhibitions, and it's a vibrant community hub, so it's invaluable. So extend my thanks personally to the Goldfields Library Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Anir, would you like to exercise a right of reply?
Absolutely, Mayor. I'm going to go again. I would be remiss if I did not mention our Director of Healthy Communities, Lisa Knight, who sits on the board alongside me and attends the finance meetings on behalf of our council and chairs the meeting when I can't go. So we're very lucky to have our council represented so well on the library board with Director Knight and I.
Thank you. All right, so all those in favour and against, and that's carried. And I just want to add to that a huge shout out to the library for also functioning as our key cool space on hot days. Councillor Maddock and Councillor Anir are right. The library brings so many benefits to the local community, and yeah, thank you. So 8.2 is the Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes from September 2025. Do I have a mover for this? Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Would you like to introduce the motion?
Thanks. Excuse me. Thanks, Mayor. Lost my voice. The minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on 25th November 2025 are at confidential attachment 8.2.1, and I would move the recommendation that Council notes the minutes of Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on 25th November 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Walker. Any objectors to this? Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'd just like to acknowledge the fine work of the Audit and Risk Committee, a fantastic team of people, and both our Mayor and CEO attend those meetings, and yes, there's a lot of talent there overseeing audit and risk with the council organisation, and yeah, I commend the meeting minutes to fellow councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
catching Tony's thing. Excuse me, Mayor. Just briefly, I know sort of the term audit and risk might sound a bit droll to people, but it's in fact a crucial committee. We're fortunate to have some very skilled people on board. And of course, audit and risk in terms of well-functioning council is a core base of it. And the report is very good reading. And that's good to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else like to speak to this motion? Councillor Cordy, you have a right of reply if you want to exercise it.
Thanks, Mayor. I think we've got it covered. Apologies for losing my voice.
Thank you. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And I concur fully with the comments of both Councillor Cordy and Councillor Walker. And Councillor Walker, I'm glad you find that enjoyable reading. I do too. And I also want to acknowledge that Councillor Anea is also a regular. Oh, well, you were at that meeting. Yeah, and I thank Councillor Anea for her attendance there. So, Section 9, Officer Reports, under 9.1 Communities, we have nil. So we'll move on to 9.2, Natural Environments, and 9.2.1, Waste Management Strategy Progress Report. Do we have a motion, councillors? Thank you, Councillor Anea.
Would you like me to
Yes,
introduce
please. If
the
you would
report?
introduce the motion, that'd be great. Thanks.
The purpose of this report is to present progress on the implementation of the Waste Management Strategy 2023 to 2033 and to provide for information on the 25-26 Annual Action Plan for this strategy. The Waste Management Strategy provides a strategic pathway in an environment where there is a significant regulatory and technological change. Importantly, the strategy informs the localised and cost-efficient management of waste that is generated with Mount Alexander Shire. The strategy sets out 4 goals. 1, reduce the generation of waste. 2, increase resource recovery of reusable and recyclable material. 3, support a local circular economy. And 4, maximise the environmental impacts of waste management. The strategy's goals contain specific focus areas guiding Council's circular economy actions and activities for waste services, which includes the collection and processing of 4 domestic waste streams, general, food and organics, glass and mixed recyclables, and public place waste. Collectively, the goals focus on the reduction of waste to landfill, the increase in rates of recycling, and the maintenance of high level of community satisfaction in line with evolving and uncertain legislative requirements in the sector. And I will move that Council 1 notes the Waste Management Strategy 2023 to 2025 reporting period progress report. 2, notes the Waste Management Strategy 2023 to 2025 reporting period action plan progress report. 3, notes the Waste Management Strategy 2025 to 2026 financial year action plan, which will be published on the Mount Alexander Shire Council website.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Any objections? Councillor Anea, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Council adopted our new waste management strategy in 2023. It's a 10-year document. And I think what was quite well highlighted in the preamble there is that we are in a really strange time for waste management. We will be transitioning towards a new waste collection stream by 2027, and that's huge. I think we've also reached a point in time where we've successfully capped all the cells of the landfill, and so it's become a transfer station now. And there's a lot of opportunity that we see for what we can do for waste management in our Shire. We know that we've got a community that is pretty passionate about recycling, reusing, reducing waste, and I guess kind of trying for a circular economy as much as possible. I think one of the things about this strategy compared to others perhaps is that it's not the kind of strategy where you can just tick things off and then they're done. So there's very few actions in this out of all of them that you tick off and then they're done forever. Most of them are things that you do and then you keep doing, and you do them every year and you do them all the time. It's got to be ongoing and consistent. There are a lot of actions in the plan around education. It is going to take a huge amount of education and I guess community all being on the same page to successfully transition to do things differently, because I think what we know is that we get very stuck in our ways, and doing new things, particularly when it comes to what we're doing with things that we don't want anymore, it can seem too hard. And I think that leads to, some not great behaviours in terms of just not separating out your waste streams at all, or, kind of getting down to dumping stuff in the bush, which we don't love. I think what was very eye-opening for me personally was a trip that some of the councillors and some of our staff took to the kind of, one of the kind of end places where our recycling is processed. We went down to a factory to see that, and it was mind-blowing. I think what really kind of stayed with me and was quite upsetting was that such a lot of this multi-million-dollar process that is just processing just so much recycling, so much of the process that they're doing is actually just because people can't put things in the right bins. So it's really around getting rid of contamination. That was really quite shocking. And talking to the people there, most of what they think needs to happen is changing people's behaviour. So there is such a lot in the plan itself, the strategy itself, around behaviour change and how we, I guess, rethink how we dispose of waste. We're kind of a little way in now. We've got a little while to go, and we're going to be looking at some, some challenges along the way. Something that is mentioned several times in the action plan reports, I guess, for the last couple of years, but as well looking ahead to we're currently in it, the 25-26 financial year, is that one of the big challenges is that there has been a lot of uncertainty and I guess not good, clear communication from the state government about what waste management will look like. We know we're mandated to do certain things by certain times, but I guess a lot of the stuff that underpins that has been unclear, and I think pretty frustrating, honestly, because we're trying to plan how to do this. It obviously takes a little while, especially when we're going to need to do things like add bins, add new schedules and get everyone on board with doing new things. So I think every briefing we've had, what we've heard quite clearly is that clarity from the state government around what is happening and what we're required to do would be very helpful, as well as potentially some additional support in implementing those changes in a relatively quick time frame. I think the strategy itself is great. I think the way that it's being approached by the team is fantastic. It really is that process of, we're not just ticking things off, we're trying to embed these things into the way we do things collectively. We're trying to educate the community more broadly, and I guess we're trying to all be on the same page. So I commend this to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you very much. Pardon me, Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now. Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like, I think Councillor Annear has covered it pretty well. There's a lot in it in terms of waste, and the big opportunity is, of course, in the circular economy and recycling. And even today, I was asked a question about burnt fencing, whether it was recycled, and I assured the person that was asking me, yes, it would all be collected up and recycled. So it's a lot, and there's a huge amount of waste is handled, but I think we've pretty well covered it. I'd like to acknowledge the work of Director Infrastructure and Development, Michael Annear, and also our Manager Operations, Cameron Duthie, on excellent report they've prepared. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Yeah, Councillor Maddock.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll just underline a few things. There's a lot that I like in this report, but a few things I especially like, and I'll try not to double up too much. And it's good to know we can tick some things off sometimes. So the investigation of soft plastics and textiles recycling is evident that we've passed that milestone, which is great. The investigation of establishing a resource recovery centre really excites me in relation to circular economies. That's particularly valuable. The stockpiling of solar panels for future reuse or recycling, our ability to drop off paint now, and also the seeking of quotes for a tender process for the processing of our green waste with a preference for local suppliers, I think is a really a positive and good move as well. So lots in here to like. They're some of my favourites, but not an exhaustive list. Thank you. Oh, and one more thing, sorry, just to a point, the review and location and management of public place bins and just planting a seed here. I'm seeing councils put baskets on their bins now for container deposit scheme bottles to go in, so the people who are collecting them don't need to rummage through bins, they just pick them out. And I think that's really neat. We're seeing in Victoria, seeing that in Yarra Peninsula, Yarra Ranges and Wollongong. So I think it's catching on. Maybe we'll see it here one day. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock, and thanks for the addendum. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Hastwell.
Thanks, Mayor. And just briefly, because I think that Councillor Anir and Cordy and Maddock have covered things really well. But particularly, I guess, from a rural perspective, a lot of the issues around dumping on roadsides and in the bush remains a challenge. It's one of the areas that we've spoke about during briefing, and it is a challenge, and obviously involves not only council but it crosses those paths, if you like, with Parks Victoria and individual residents reporting, etc. We know that we've got a way to go, and it's not all on council, but we are keen to look at some of the models that are perhaps being used effectively elsewhere. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anir, you have a right of reply. You want to exercise it?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Really, these reports does for me every time is really, I guess, highlight how important it is that everyone participates in like positive waste management. And I know that everyone's capacity is different to feel like they can do something, but what my personal experience has been as someone who thought they couldn't do very much because it just felt too hard is that by doing very little things in your own home and then kind of radiating out where you can make a huge difference. And I think if people can collectively feel that they have some agency to do that and that it's not as difficult maybe as it first appears, council will of course do our bit. But I think the more I read these reports and the more we kind of look at the way the world is going with waste management, we're all going to have to do our own bits, and that's a big, quite a tall order, I think, particularly for people who are pretty stuck in their habits. But I think what my experience has showed me is that by doing shockingly little on a weekly basis, you can make quite a big difference in your own household, and then kind of share the load more broadly. And I think a big part of council's role in this, apart from obviously providing bins and managing the collection and managing the transfer stations, is to help with that education, and also, I guess, that kind of understanding that we need to do it together. That council can do its bit, but it's actually it's on residents as well to do their own bit, and we can kind of do that together. You don't have to be on your own with it. There'll be help available. So I'm daunted, I think, because there's a lot in here that we're hoping to achieve, but I think those slow and steady steps is really the way to go, and just building on the progress that we've already made. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour, and against, and that's carried. And I just want to thank Councillor Anir for pointing out that wonderful trip to the facility in Laverton, wasn't it? Yeah. Late last year, the Cleanaway site. It really was an eye-opener. It's extraordinary, the level of technology and the amount of work, and not just the technology, but the human input there. It's really amazing. And just to concur with you, Councillor, about I too was shocked at how much energy and money goes into separating those commingled recycling items. And to pick up also, and thank you for pointing out the role of agency of individuals and families in this. It's so important. I'm glad you referenced that, and about community education. One thing I'd like to add from the report is that one of the items was the establishment of a community waste reference group, and I'm fortunate to be the councillor delegate on that committee, and I'm happy to report to the meeting that that's a very good group of people, some with professional experience in waste management, others with strong interest in recycling and community approaches and education approaches. And all of the points that Councillor Anir made so eloquently are being followed up as priorities in that community waste reference group. And of course, the team under Director Anir and Cam Duthie are also focused on these as well. And I just, I commend you for those comments. It's so important. It's so much about how we perform our tasks with our waste. And I agree with you. It is often they're quite small things that that can make a successful or the difference between making a heap of work at the other end and not. But thank you, councillors. So moving on to 9.2.2 is a response to a petition regarding the ongoing spread of wheel cactus in Mount Alexander Shire. Do we have a motion, councillors? Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. Would you like to introduce the motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. So by way of introduction, Council received a petition on the 10th of November 2025 from residents expressing concerns regarding the spread of wheel cactus in action in the Tarrangower ward, and that the lack of engagement and compliance to manage infestations on private properties creates a risk to neighbouring properties. The petition was signed by 21 people and was tabled and accepted at the 18th of November 2025 Ordinary Council meeting. Council officers are working with local advocacy and action group, the Tarrangower Cactus Control Group, to address this non-compliance issue. Council officers and the Tarrangower Cactus Control Group have contacted the Department of Agriculture to seek support to address the issue of unchecked infestations on private properties. In response, the Department of Agriculture met with the Tarrangower Cactus Control Group in December 25 to outline a program to address wheel cactus infestations on their properties. That's on not the properties of the wheel cactus control group, but properties in the area. It's recommended that council officers continue to work with the Tarrangower Cactus Control Group to engage and work with the Department of Agriculture on this issue, and notably on the actions requested in the petition to identify and engage landowners who are not complying with their legal responsibility to control wheel cactus, especially absentee landowners, and provide guidance or programs to assist landholders who may be willing to act but require support or information. So I'd like to move that Council 1 notes that council officers will work with the Department of Agriculture and Tarrangower Cactus Control Group to identify and engage landowners who are not complying with their legal responsibility to control wheel cactus, especially absentee landowners. Number 2, notes that council officers will work with the Department of Agriculture and Tarrangower Cactus Control Group to provide guidance and programs to assist landholders who may be willing to act on wheel cactus infestations on their properties and require support and or information. And 3, that council officers will advise the lead petitioner of the outcome of the response to their petition.
Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Walker. Any objections? Okay. Councillor Hastwell, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Thanks, Mayor. So I'd really like to congratulate the efforts of the Tarangara Cactus Control Group and to acknowledge that we do have two members of the group here tonight who are easily identifiable by their T-shirts. So great to have you joining. It really is a bit of a spirit of celebration as the culmination in some ways, not the end, but a significant step forward after decades of really hard work and advocacy on the ground by members of this group, together with the support of council officers. I've seen it firsthand, some of the more significant infestations on neglected properties, and appreciate the limitations of what can be achieved by local groups. But this local group has really hung on in there and has not given up, and it's really great to see this outcome. It is vital that the state government as well as council support and work together with the community to tackle this problem. And it's such great news that since the petition was tabled in November and following a letter to the Minister by the CEO, as well as ongoing advocacy work by the Cactus Warriors, the Department of Agriculture has committed to an extension and compliance program. So once again, Tarangara Cactus Control Group have always played a key role, and it's fantastic to see this significant outcome after such a lot of hard and consistent work in the area of community education and consistent advocacy. I'd like to also just draw attention to some of the outcomes of the advocacy from the group a year or so ago as council was going into budget process, and some of the work together that the group has done with council officers and some of the priority actions that were agreed to, including preparing a list of absentee landowners in the Tarangara region with wheel cactus infestations, and that work is currently underway. The agreement that the Chief Executive Officer would write to the Department of Agriculture, which of course is completed and has contributed to this forward movement. Updating the Tarangara Cactus Control Group brochure into council format and sending it to targeted absentee landowners. That work has commenced and is also part of the very important community education that is so integral to controlling the spread of wheel cactus. Meeting with local laws team to discuss enforcement opportunities, which has occurred, and updating weed information on the council website, which is, if not quite completed, I think very close to being completed. So again, really practical actions and a great example, I think, of community working together with council and now with the Department of Agriculture coming on board. That's probably, hopefully, a fairly good summary of where we're up to now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now, except I think Councillor Hastwell's probably covered it all very confidently. Just noting that wheel cactus has been prevalent in Mount Alexander Shire, particularly for Tarangara Ward, for decades, but it is a weed of national significance and a declared noxious species in Victoria. Certainly the wheel cactus group has been very strong and tireless in their efforts, both with council officers and with getting councillors out there to do it, to see what's going on. There is financial implications in dealing with it, but as a noxious weed, it has to be dealt with. It's a bit unfortunate. There are some landowners, particularly the absentees, who have not yet been in a position to pull their weight, because it's not an easy cactus to eradicate, as we discovered on our visit, but emphasising the importance of getting rid of it because of the damage that it can do. So certainly I thank them for the petition and endorse the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Thank you, Councillor Maddock.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is very welcome to see this because on our tour last year, I think getting action from Agricultural Victoria was one of the things that was flagged as needing to happen, but it felt a little bit impossible last year. And I think there's maybe been historically issues with getting meaningful action on weed management on private land. So I think this is a really positive step in the right direction, and I hope there's follow through here and that it can be effective. But hats off to you guys for sticking to it and getting results. I love seeing the country here healthy, and when I go and look at the cactus infestations, it does not look like healthy country at all. And look, I've got a lot of concern for the granitic soil areas that aren't infested and just what that might look like in 10 or 20, 30 years time if we don't manage this, and seeing that all through the granitic soils of Harcourt, and I think there's some other areas further north that are a real worry as well. So I'm glad to see some action here, and thank you for your advocacy, and extend that to council for their advocacy too. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Okay, Councillor Hastrell, you have a right of reply.
Thanks, Mayor, and yes, thank you to fellow councillors, Councillor Walker and Councillor Maddock. Just in closing, to also acknowledge the work of our officers here in council once again, and thank them for, I guess, being on the journey for quite some time. And I know that there's quite a high degree of satisfaction there by those officers who've been concerned about this for a long time as well. So thank you to the Coordinator of Parks and Open Space, Victoria Barrett, and Natural Environment Officer Matt McEachran, and of course also to the Director of Infrastructure and Development, Michael Anir, for your support in this space. And we look forward to seeing the positive impacts that this further development will no doubt have.
Thank you, councillor. We'll put it to the vote then. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And yeah, that visit to the Tarrangower, to your ward, councillor, last year with the control group was really informative for us, and I share the points you made, and Councillor Maddock's observations of healthy country. This is to be commended, and especially the activity of the Wheel Cactus Control Group in this has been super, and it's I think a good example of community-driven environmental responses working well with council. Thank you for coming tonight too. Okay, so the next item is 9.3 infrastructure, and 9.3.1. Thank you, Chief. So 9.3.1 is the awarding of contract M2025-97 new footpath construction 2025-26 Hargrave Street footpath stage 1. Do we have a motion, councillors? Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Would you like to introduce this?
Thank you, Mayor. This report seeks approval to proceed with the contract award for the construction of footpath at Hargrave Street in Castlemaine. The report further seeks approval to authorise the Director of Infrastructure and Development for the financial delegation to execute the contract documentation, approve the purchase order, and approve up to 30% of the contract variations for the project. The project involves the construction of approximately 255 metres of new footpath on the western side of Hargrave Street between Campbell Street and Berkeley Street. Council have allocated $200,000 for annual footpath construction for the financial year of 2025 to 26 under the Capital Works program. The recommended tender offer is from Enoch Civil Pty Ltd at the value of $234,828, excluding GST. And I'd like to move that council approves the awarding of the contract M 2025 to 27, which I'll refer to from now on as the contract. The new footpath construction, portion A, Hargrave Street Footpath Stage 1 to Enoch Civil Pty Ltd, for the value of $234,828, excluding GST. 2, approves the Director of Infrastructure and Development the financial delegation to A, execute the contract documentation on behalf of the Mount Alexander Shire Council for the contract. Portion A, Hargrave Street Footpath Stage 1, following execution by Enoch Civil Pty Ltd, approves the purchase order for Enoch Pty Ltd of $238,828, excluding GST, approves cumulative variations up to 30% of the original contract value within approved budget. Please note that council approval will be sought for any variation exceeding this percentage threshold in accordance with the procurement policy. 3, endorses the proposed governance structure.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Anir. Any objections, councillors? Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm really excited about anything that encourages active transport and pedestrian mobility in the Shire. We hear a lot from constituents about the needs of footpaths, and I've walked all these streets. I really get it. Anything that encourages kids to get on bikes, parents to push prams, it's a very good thing. So I welcome this. I'm even more excited because it's happening in my ward, although I won't personally benefit from it. Of course, I like seeing this happen, and I'll just highlight that council chooses the areas for these very carefully, and that this was considered the highest priority in the list of planned works. And also the Enoch Civil has a strong, and I'm quoting here, has a strong performance history with Mount Alexander Shire Council, consistently delivering works to the required standard and meeting project specifications. And I understand that it's not always easy to find a contractor who can deliver. So I think we consider ourselves lucky. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anir, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now. Thank you, ma'am. Really not very much to add to what Councillor Maddock has already said. I'm also always very excited about footpaths, mainly because my mum doesn't drive and walks everywhere, and she complains about the footpaths a lot. So anytime I can tell her that council is in fact building another footpath is a bit of a win. I think also, as Councillor Maddock mentioned, I think we would like to build more footpaths if we could as a council. What shocks me and continues to shock me is how expensive things are. And I think when I, am out and about trying to explain council to people, and, people want more footpaths, particularly as, a huge amount of the Shire does not have footpaths. It's kind of limited to the CBD, and if you're lucky, you might get one near your house maybe. They cost an awful lot. They really do. And I think learning just how shockingly much footpaths, roads, bridges, drainage, everything costs. We're doing okay. Obviously, people would like more footpaths. Obviously, we would like to be able to put more footpaths in. But I think what is striking is just how expensive things are, and how we're kind of constantly trying to do the best we can with the money that we've got and the quotes that we have. I think something that's become very apparent, particularly in that kind of post-COVID environment, but I think it was already happening, is that waiting to see kind of what the market does is not guaranteed to be a winner. In fact, the more we wait, the more it seems things cost. So I think we're doing what we can with what we have. This is going to be a great footpath because it does connect town to, you know, an area where there are lots of places where community members would like to go. It will always come up, you know, how did you pick this location? But, you know, the place near my house needs a footpath just as much. There will always be those kind of comments. And I think, again, as Councillor Maddock has said, we don't just kind of draw these locations out of a hat. There is a very, very, very long list, and places that need footpaths are prioritised based on a number of things. I know this one was identified quite a long time ago. I think this is the other thing that can be difficult to understand sometimes is just how long things take. And from memory, this site was, I think the kind of the design for it was done in 2020. So the fact that we're, you know, managing to fund and build it relatively soon, but after a significant amount of time, that is how long it takes to get things to happen. So I think main points from me, we would like to build more footpaths. They're very expensive and things take quite a lot of time, but every footpath that we do build is exciting. I think they will gradually build up and connect to each other, and hopefully that will encourage and make it easier for more people to transport themselves around actively. That's, I think, all I wanted to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Would any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Walker.
Just briefly noting, Mayor, and endorsing the comments of the others, the successful tender is a regional Victorian as well, not urban, which I think is a nice touch.
Thank you, Councillor. Good point. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Maddock, you have a right of reply.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll just following on from Rosie's comments about the value for access here. While I don't live close to this area, I drive Hargrave Street almost every day, and I'm looking at a map as I speak. It really is it's a north-south thoroughfare for quite a large population. What do we call it? Grouping. There are a lot of houses that use Hargrave Street to get to and from town. So I think it's a very valuable project, and I look forward to seeing it completed. And thanks to the work from Director Anir and his team to make it happen.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. We'll put it to the vote then. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And concurring with the remarks of Councillors Maddock and Anir, I just add that it is an important north-south thoroughfare, Hargrave Street. A lot of people who live up that end of town are keen to impress upon me over the years that while Barker Street has good footpaths, it's not necessarily the most amenable place to walk in heavy traffic times, and people do choose Kennedy and Hargrave and Urquhart Streets. Also add that for our significant community of people living with disabilities, this is actually a huge thing here. Like the footpath down Berkeley Street, further down from Barker to Kennedy Street, and every time we add another link of footpaths in that part of town, there's a significant population of people living with disabilities who rely on, who use wheelchairs and other mobility aids. That expands the network of township they can traverse and walk in. So this is huge. I used to walk to school that way up Hargrave Street, and I came across it several times, tripping over as a dawdling schoolboy, tripping on gravel and roots and whatnot. I like to think that kids walking up once this is completed won't be getting bloody knees tripping over gravel on Hargrave Street. Yeah, so again, hats off to the team who have brought this through. Can we welcome our CEO back now? Here he comes. Thank you, CEO. So moving on to 9.4 wellbeing economies, we have nil. 9.5 organisation, we have nil. Delegates reports, councillors. Who'd like to go first? Councillor Walker.
Just very briefly, Mayor, one, over last Christmas, which seems a lifetime ago now. Did some volunteer stuff with Castlemaine Community House over some of the vulnerable people over the Christmas period. And then from January 9 as councillor and also volunteer with a humanitarian organisation, assistance to people affected by the fires. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Who'd like to go next? Councillor Hastwell.
Thanks, Mayor. I think you covered very well at the beginning of the meeting the sentiments of all councillors in relation to the fires and the appreciation and of the impact as well as the appreciation of the extraordinary efforts from across the community. I was delighted, I guess, to meet with the Maldon CFA and also Walmer CFA units the weekend after. Gosh, I guess was it the weekend after? It's all a bit of a fog, isn't it now? But very shortly after January 9th, it must have been more than a weekend. And once again, you know, so incredibly impressed by the response of those units. The tiny Walmer unit, who of course were first on the scene with the outbreak of the Ravenswood South fire. It was also very heartening and important, I think, to see the response of the broader community, both in appreciation of the work of the CFA volunteers, but also, I guess, what I describe as a realisation or a penny dropping moment for many people across our shire, appreciating how real the risk of bushfire is and how absolutely vital it is that every single householder is conscious and plays their part in preparedness. I think we've emphasised a lot tonight about the importance of partnerships and the reliance on individuals taking responsibility. Just very briefly, also thank you to the Maldon Neighbourhood Centre for opening the Neighbourhood Centre on those very, very hot days so that people at that end of the Shire had somewhere to go. And that was in addition, of course, to Castlemaine Town Hall, which is very tricky for people from across the whole Shire to get to. And of course, Survival Day, Australia Day was a really great event in many ways, and also delighted to be at the Castlemaine State Festival photo op launch last weekend, and I'm looking at the journalist in our midst. A lot of fun and celebration around the creativity that's about to take over Castlemaine in about 4.5 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maddock.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and for your comments earlier about the effect of the bushfires on the community. Yeah, I'll never forget coming back to our house, coming up over the hill towards Harcourt and watching Leanganuk burn. Was a gut wrenching thing to see, and the effect and the hurt in the community really can't be understated. But also, yeah, it's buoying seeing how the communities come together as well. So I just wanted to highlight a few things I've been to recently, which have really illustrated that. Most recently, the fundraiser at the old jail, the art auction, market stalls, music. I believe the mayor was playing in a band there, so good on you. I was with a garage sale with the Greens. And I believe that about 21,000 was raised. And I hear from Shed Shaker, they also took 6,500 off the bar, which substantially boosts that up. So good on the organisers who were working tirelessly for that, and the artists who donated work, and the musicians who played, and the businesses donating their services and goods to raise money. It's only one of many things that are happening. I'm not highlighting all of them, just the ones that I'm privy to. Also went to Pub Sing. The Pub Sing #1, I'm aware they've done 2, was excellent fun, and I'm aware that they've raised about $26,000 from those 2 events as well. So I think, yeah, excellent initiative and people really coming together. and doing what they can do. I was at the Take Back the Track event on Sunday, which is incredibly impressive. It's an initiative from a resident of the Shire that's turned into, well, now we learned that it's an international event. I think there's 170 events running across the country yesterday. And yeah, amazing initiative, a really important cause. I think the violence that women, girls, and gender diverse people are experiencing daily in our country, it's one of the great travesties which we just haven't worked out how to, or maybe we have worked out how to fix, but we're not seeing the results we need yet, and it really is shocking. We need action on the drivers of gendered violence, and it's these sorts of initiatives that I think are excellent to create the small amount of change. And I think it was a local filmmaker, Alex Cully, who said it's the small gestures that add up to create the cultural change that we need to see. So I think the community leading in, particularly men and boys leaning in, and our governments leaning into that and learning from that is really important. So I commend the organisers and everyone who attended that, and hope that event and movement continues to grow. And then lastly, it feels like old news now, but it's not, which is the early findings of the Healthy Loddon Campaspe active living census, which has shown that food insecurity in the region has almost doubled since the last survey, which in some ways doesn't surprise me given just how much cost of living is increasing. But I think it really brings it home, and I understand we'll get more localised data soon, but I'd assume to see similar patterns in our Shire. The people with the least amount of income and disposable income now are really feeling the pinch and doing it really tough. And it sounds like a bit of a mantra because we talk about it so much, but it doesn't. These effects just keep on compounding for these people. So I have immense compassion for them, and we've got really good networks set up with food pantries and responses, so the community stepping up to address these, but we're not seeing the systemic problems being addressed to bring cost of living down, and this is something we really desperately need. Thank you, Mayor. There's a lot of other things I could say, but I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Any other councillors with a delegates report? Okay. So the meetings attended by the CEO and myself from 17th of December 2025 until today are quite a number, and so I won't read them all out. But on the topic of the fires, just a couple of points I'd like to raise here. And I guess pursuant to my comments at the start of the meeting, the community meetings at Castlemaine Town Hall and Kyneton Town Hall on Saturday, the 10th of January, were very powerful events. And it was really great to see so many community members turn up to the Castlemaine Town Hall meeting. I've been to many events in that space since I was a kid, and I think that was probably the biggest I've seen in terms of numbers in that town hall. And particularly of note to councillors who couldn't attend was the enormous response when I acknowledged the first responders and their role. Was really moving, really extraordinary. The response from the townsfolk who had attended that meeting. The following day, it was my duty to host Prime Minister Albanese, Premier Allen, Federal Minister for Local Government, Christy McBain, State Minister for Emergency Services and Natural Disaster Recovery, Vicky Ward, our local members, Lisa Chesters and Marie Edwards, and quite a large party of support staff as we toured some of the fireground at Harcourt, and I think, and that followed a tour of the Incident Control Centre up in Epsom, and it was an intense time, but I think it was a fruitful time in that it was a really a good opportunity to show those leaders firsthand the impacts of the fire on our beloved township of Harcourt. And of course, I draw attention again to the partnership we've enjoyed with state and federal politicians, both sides of the aisle, from government and opposition, and those government agencies as we've sought to recover. There were lots of media appearances, of course, at that time as well. Lots of meetings with Harcourt Progress Association and other organisations involved in the recovery. Lots of meetings with community groups and businesses in Castlemaine and throughout the Shire who put their shoulder to the wheel on January 9 and 10, 11 in particular, but also since then, whether it's through fundraising or whether it was by offering help to those who had evacuated. It's been an extraordinary month. Also, before the fires, following the Bondi terrorist attack, I want to draw attention to an interfaith vigil which was hosted at the Anglican Church here in Castlemaine, attended by myself and Councillors Walker and Maddock, and a range of people from different backgrounds in our Shire. And that was a very powerful moment where we were able to hold space together. Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that meeting. On a lighter note, I had great bowling figures at the Crickety Christmas. I think I took 2 for 6 off 2 overs, hit 24 runs off 2 overs with Dr. Richard Mays. That was really great. And hopefully that Crickety Christmas will become an annual event. I know the organisers are keen to, and they're looking at organisations that they can fundraise for. So that was just before Christmas. Also, just quickly to draw attention that I had a really great meeting with the Mayor of Hepburn Shire, Tony Clark, down in his home of Creswick. It was really interesting talking mayor to mayor about some of the things we have in common with Hepburn Shire, the strong arts community, a robust tourist economy, and also the differences between our Shire and Hepburn Shire. Of course, we're sort of fortunate in a way that the Shire of Mount Alexander, the borders of Mount Alexander Shire represent a kind of a natural economic hinterland, as it were, with Castlemaine as a sort of a central township and those surrounding us. And it was interesting hearing from Councillor Clark how that isn't necessarily the case in all rural shires. Really interesting reflections. I'm really happy that this week we get to formalise our joining of a new tourist board, which is focused on Hepburn Macedon Ranges, and looking forward to furthering those conversations with our colleagues in neighbouring shires. And again, just to note, Councillor Maddock's already spoken about the Take Back the Track, and I completely concur with everything you said, Councillor. It was a very powerful day, and how well attended it was. Wasn't it magnificent? And the amount of volunteers who turned out, the marshals en route with their colourful disco pants and disco music, and the water bearers and the cooks who prepared all the food up at the Botanical Gardens. Is really wonderful, and a great way also to experience that Watcherang Barong, the platypus track up the new, well, with the missing link. Yeah, but I again defer to Councillor Maddock's earlier comments about the more serious side of that. And on a very light note, so before the meeting, Councillor Cordy suggested we start the meeting with a joke, and we couldn't start with a joke, but the joke, I think, was my dancing performance Instagram. And thanks to all the community members who have shared the joy with me and brought to my attention the various ways I could improve my dancing. It was a lot of fun. And I'm really happy that it generated some views in aid of trying to get Tones and I to come and perform. 29,000 or something views of that silly video. CEO.
Thanks, Mayor. And I won't go over all that you've said again, because I think you've captured it beautifully, councillors, about the amount of work that's happened in our community, in our partners in other departments and state and federal government people, as well as so many others who've contributed towards the response to the fires. I did just want to say, and we've got we're usually good for 2 or 3 pages, I think, Mayor, in meetings when we present these at the group. We've got about 4 this time, and probably 95% of them are related to the fires. And I think it's, to me, as you were pointing out, Mayor, in some of the ones that you mentioned there, it's been a fantastic response and level of support from everybody who thought that they could lend a hand to us from a departmental and a government perspective, as well as so much in the community, as you've said. It's a great list that demonstrates what happens when there's trouble somewhere and what people are prepared to do to jump in and help out. I think that's probably that's the formal meetings that we're able to capture. I suspect it's about 10% of the number of meetings that you and I alone were involved in those 3 weeks or so of real intensity, and probably about 5% of the total number of meetings if you add in all of the meetings that all of our staff were involved in, and Lisa Knight particularly continues to be involved in, and will be for some time. So, yeah, I just want to lend my thanks and acknowledgement to everybody's contribution towards trying to deal with that pretty difficult situation so far, and a big thanks in advance for the many, many months and years ahead to keep helping people through that. Mayor, I did want to say in that as well, we've had different forums being able to do this, but your leadership throughout that whole time was outstanding, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of the staff for how you led us through that as well. And I think we should be very proud of the work that you did alongside our entire organisation, particularly led through Lisa Knight, Alana Cooper, and Phil Harrison as our main leads in the emergency response and recovery response, but also with the absolute support of the entire executive, the entire management group, and, as you said before, so many staff directly involved, and the entire staff, because everybody has to lift when somebody else's attention is taken away to do something else. And it's a response that I'm really proud of. I wish we didn't have to make that response, Mayor, of course, but it's a response from our organisation that I'm going to remain immensely proud of, I must say. The other one that I'm always proud of is, as was mentioned, the Australia Day Survival Day event. Again, it's I don't know, I try to always describe it as it's a day when we celebrate the best of being an Australian and being in Australia, and the worst of it all in the one go, and not trying to defend or argue a point in either direction, but just respect. It's got a lot of elements to it, and that's something that I've felt very proud of over the years, in how Mount Alexander Shire is able to present two quite opposing views and say we accept all of that, because that's what we've been able to do here, particularly under the leadership of Uncle Rick Nelson, who's helped us all the way along to be able to do that. So congratulations to all the staff who've been involved in making that day another fantastic day, I think, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. And just one little erratum I need to correct, councillors. I didn't take 2 for 6. I took 1 for 7 off 2 overs. Still my best figure. Anyone who's faced my pies that I bowl will still recognise that's not bad returns for a pie chucker like myself, but it was 1 for 7, not 2 for 6 off 2 overs. Don't know where I got the 2 for 6. I got away with myself. Thank you. So moving on, and thank you, Chief. Moving on to section 11, notices of motion. Now, the first one is the notice of motion 001/2026, emergency post-disaster housing. Do we have a motion? No, so we'll move on to the next one, but I'll just add to that this was a motion that I drew up around a motion for the Australian Local Government Association General Assembly in Canberra in June this year, and mea culpa on this is that I didn't realise at the time I drafted the motion that such a plan, such a program already exists. And I'm happy to report that council officers are working closely with our state and federal counterparts to further the accommodation needs of those disaster affected residents. So 11.2, Notice of Motion 002/2026, tree canopy cover and greening of active transport routes. Do we have a mover for this? Thank you, Councillor Matic. Would you like to introduce it, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The motion is that federally funded active transport projects in urban environments require the provision of canopy cover and, where practicable, plantings and vegetations along the proposed routes. This is to provide better UV protective shade to mitigate the urban heat island effect and to encourage biodiversity and the establishment of habitat.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. Any objectors? Councillor Matic, would you like to speak further to this?
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll just note that should Council adopt this motion, officers will submit it to the Australian Local Government Association, known as ALGA, for consideration for the 32nd National General Assembly of Local Governments, known as NGA, being held in Canberra in June 2026. Projected increases in the patronage and extent of active transport routes in towns and cities means more residents will be exposed to the harmful levels of UV light on routes that are unshaded. Further, rising average temperatures and spreading urban development is resulting in increasing urban heat island effects in built-up areas. The most cost-effective and practical mitigation for urban heat is to plant trees and vegetation. By requiring canopy cover and greening along active transport routes, this key infrastructure will be of far greater benefit and will provide better safety for users. This relates to several Mount Alexander Shire strategies and policies, including the Active Transport Strategy, Goal 3, the Streetscape Plan and Design Standards 4.1.2, Urban Tree Policy, Climate Change Strategy, Action Plan, Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan, and the Council Plan. And the officer comment is, should Council adopt this motion, officers will submit it. And that sounds like what I read before, so I won't continue reading. I'm thanking you, Mayor, for putting this together as well. I think it's a really good initiative. Going back to my comments about encouraging active transport use, I try and walk and cycle as much as I can, and with kids, I'm doing it a lot. And finding yourself in the sun, getting sunburn or heat stroked is probably one of the least favourite aspects of that. And just tree and canopy cover is so important from that point of view. And of course, the biodiversity and the conservation benefits can't be understated as well. So very happy to move this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Matic. Councillor Hastwell, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now. Thank you, Councillor Matic, for putting this forward. I concur with all of the rationale. It's obviously a very cost-effective approach that has multiple benefits. And I guess I'd just add to that the general improvement to amenities. So it ticks boxes all over the place, really, doesn't it? This kind of approach, it makes absolute sense. So I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Okay, Councillor Matic, you have a right of reply.
That's fine, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. Thank you. So 11.3, notice of motion 003/2026 on volunteering. Do we have a motion, councillors? Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. Would you like to introduce the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. In introduction, across Australia, many community organisations are suffering a decline in the numbers of people volunteering. It's something that we hear almost on a daily basis. The decline in the number of volunteers is impacting a wide range of community organisations that deliver important and valued services in our cities, towns and regions. These include, but are not limited to, sporting clubs, arts and service organisations, as well as environment and faith-based groups. The problem is exacerbated by the ageing of the remnant volunteer pool. Participation in voluntary organisations is an important way that people find place and meaning, connect with each other and develop and strengthen community resilience. Such organisations provide valuable services to the wider community that public and private sectors are usually unable to support without volunteers. In order to remain vibrant and well supported, volunteer organisations also need to attract new members with the potential to take on leadership and office-bearing roles. In recent years, there's been a marked decline in effective succession to these important roles, and existing volunteer leadership groups are often impacted by declining health and capacity associated with ageing. While individual organisations have varying degrees of success in promoting drives for new volunteers, an effectively networked and collaborative approach across local communities is often key to revitalisation. In line with the findings and recommendations of the National Volunteering Strategy, a nationally coordinated campaign that draws attention to the public, civic and health and wellbeing benefits of volunteering and that embeds this promotion into public health messaging and social prescribing models would have a greater overall positive impact than individual or discrete campaigns. And I'd like to move that officers submit the following motion to the Australian Local Government Association for consideration at the 32nd National General Assembly of Local Government being held in Canberra in June 26. So the proposed motion is that the federal government supports a national campaign to strengthen volunteering in line with the findings and recommendations of the National Volunteering Strategy, and that this includes adequate resourcing for local councils to work as part of their local community volunteering ecosystems to promote capacity building in order for local communities to more effectively attract, support and retain volunteering across priority areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Walker. Any objections? Councillor Hastwell, would you like to speak further to this?
No, I won't. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else like to speak? I beg your pardon. Sorry. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak now or reserve your right? Okay. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Walker.
Thank you. Just noting someone who's involved with a few organisations, there's certainly volunteering, I think, has been long considered a core component within Australian society. There has definitely been a shift. Many factors related to that. I suspect some of the more challenging economic circuits, times where people have to dedicate more time to working, higher standards in terms of checks and balances on volunteers, on financial accountability systems has made it tougher. So that, and we're seeing instead the rise of what's being called spontaneous volunteerism. There is complexities, it is difficult to manage, but the National Volunteering Strategy does provide a very good direction for that. And for the vibrancy and life of our society, volunteering is crucial, and therefore I support this motion for the local federal government to be adequately resourcing local councils to be able to support all these community organisations. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Councillor Hastwell, you have a right of reply.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Walker. I think I'd just like to draw attention again to what's been such a very evident display of volunteering as we've suffered the impacts of bushfire in the Shire so recently. It's unfathomable to imagine what that situation would look like now if we didn't have the sort of volunteers that we have in the Shire. I will single one out, I guess, in particular. Harcourt Progress Association is probably an exemplary instance, I guess, of a very grounded, connected community organisation that has responded, being able to provide leadership, reassurance and response. Those are the sorts of volunteers and groups, and they're across our whole Shire, but they're also across the whole country. And when it comes to local government, I do believe that local government has an important role in facilitating some of the connections and assisting some of those volunteer groups, not to take over that work in any way, shape or form, but to be part of that that connected ecology. And I believe that this support from the federal government would make a huge difference. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hastrell. Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And thank you, Councillor Hastrell, for your input in bringing this idea to be a well-presented idea in the form of this motion. Okay, so 11.4, Notice of Motion 004/2026, Housing-Related Policy Frameworks and Associated Funding Streams. Councillors, do we have a mover for this? Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Would you like to introduce this motion, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I've put this motion together based very much on one that on an officer recommended motion for MAV last year. So I thank the officers for their work on this. For many years, Mount Alexander Shire Council has been at the forefront of Victorian local government efforts to deliver more affordable and appropriate housing into its community. In addition to working closely with housing providers such as Haven Home Safe and Winteringham Housing to repurpose council land for more housing, council has developed strong relationships and partnerships with multiple parts of state government to unlock surplus state-owned land. Significant progress has also been made on the creation of a housing trust that will deliver affordable and appropriate rental housing in perpetuity. Numerous privately led developments that might not otherwise be proposed in the Shire are also occurring. The above motion the above initiatives have only been made possible by Council's industry-leading commitment to fund the ongoing role of the housing solutions broker, without having the singular focus on connecting housing needs and opportunities with those who can offer a solution or response. The gap between what is available and what is needed will continue to widen. So too, this role has enabled Council to gain a deep understanding of the many reasons for the lack of alignment between supply and demand for housing at a local, state and national level. This in turn has enabled Council to develop and make numerous submissions to inquiries at a state and federal level. In each, it has called for change to housing policy and funding systems for housing development, and for new support systems to enable all councils to play a greater role in responding to this national challenge. Despite this work, government policy continues to lack discernment in how it considers the very different challenges, needs and opportunities for housing in remote, rural, regional and metropolitan areas of Victoria and Australia. In turn, funding programs persist with little consideration given to the material different supply and cost equations that apply in these markets. Similarly, no recognition to the relative social and economic impact that the addition or loss of a home in a rural or remote area compared to regional and metropolitan area can provide has been factored into such policies or programs. One contributing reason for this ongoing situation is that councils are working sustainably in isolation to each other. Substantially in isolation to each other, hopefully sustainably as well. That said, There's been strong work by Rural Councils Victoria, Regional Cities Victoria and MAV to raise awareness with governments of the various challenges being experienced across the state in the supply of housing. And it couldn't be more pertinent to raise this now. And I think just to add my personal take on this, in rural communities, we face disadvantages, which means we often feel inequalities and housing inequalities in more severe ways than our regional cities and metropolitan counterparts, which means the value of getting housing here can have a greater community impact. And this is largely being overlooked when we're considering housing. So we can use the word taking an intersectional approach in how we assess the value of our housing projects to recognise that they can have a greater impact here. So on that, I'd like to move that the Australian Local Government Association advocates to the state and federal government for, one, the development of housing-related policy frameworks and associated funding streams that are unique to each of the 4 settings of remote, rural, regional and metropolitan Victoria and Australia. Such frameworks and funding streams must integrate policy responses across domains, including housing, agriculture, mining, tourism, health, education, and economic development. And B, individually addresses the planning, development, and delivery contexts of housing in remote, rural, regional, and metropolitan areas of Victoria and Australia, with particular emphasis on the different needs, dynamics, and challenges that exist in each area. The creation of mechanisms within Treasury and Housing Australia to facilitate simpler and more equitable access to funding and finance for appropriate and affordable housing development. Such mechanisms must include A, support and resources to assist councils to apply for funding through Housing Australia, and B, the creation of housing fund models that enable the aggregation.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Anir, thank you. Any objections? Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak further to this?
I'm well covered, thank you, Mayor.
Sure, thank you. Councillor Anir, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now. Thank
Thanks.
you, Mayor. As Councillor Maddock said, this is similar to a motion we put forward at MAV State Council last year. Really, the experience that we've had and that many other, particularly I think rural councils have had, is that we have great need of more affordable housing in our communities, and we are trying to take steps to provide some of that. But the funding streams that currently exist do not work for us. We are unable to build at a scale that is affordable. Things cost more here just by essence of us being rural, and we're not an attractive, I guess, sell to a funding stream. We've talked to so many MPs about this, and we've pretty much said it to everyone possible definitely across my time on council, that rural is not regional, is not metro. And thus the funding streams need to affect that. The fact that we have progressed so far with many of our housing projects, but are unable to build at this time because we just can't make it work with the funding stream provided from state or federal government. And I think there has been kind of verbal acknowledgements of that when we've talked to people about it, that, yeah, you know, it doesn't quite work for you, but there hasn't been any shifts at policy level that would allow us more easily to access money to do the projects that we know would actually have an impact on the housing crisis in our own communities. So I think this is really calling again on the state and federal governments to hear what we're saying. That is, we want to be part of solving this problem, because honestly, nobody else is going to do it at this point. We're ready. We've invested heavily in as council and in council to be in a place where we're quite well prepared to build some houses that will, be for members of our community and will hopefully lighten the load a bit. But we can't access the funds to do it and we can't generate those funds ourselves. So we're kind of hit on a number of different levels to how we're disadvantaged compared to perhaps metro councils who are able to build at higher scale, which means that they're cheaper and also are able to generate more revenue. I really hope somebody who can starts listening to this kind of stuff, because I think unleashing the power of local government when we're saying we're ready to do this, we have answers, just help us do what we need to do. I think it would be fantastic, if we more easily could access funding and do really what we've been trying to do for quite a few years now, without feeling constantly like we're kind of just not on the same page. I think another thing that Councillor Maddock mentioned is around kind of the benefit of an additional house in a shire like ours compared to other places. And I'm not saying that an additional house is not of value anywhere, but it can be of huge value in towns like ours, like we have in our shire, and it can mean people can stay here and work and provide services. It's all kind of one ecosystem, and the fact that we do not have suitable, affordable housing for so many, and that our housing stock does not match our population, and that we have been trying for years to do something about it and are still struggling with funding. I just think it is time for something to shift because it's not going to get any better otherwise. So I'm very happy to support this notice of motion to go to the Australian Local Government Association and hopefully then on to state and federal government, who will hopefully listen to us this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Anea. Would any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Maddock, your right of reply.
No, I'm fine, Mayor. Thanks.
Okay, well, let's put it to a vote then. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And thank you, Councillor Maddock, for drawing attention to the intersectionality question. I'm not sure if that wording is in here, but I think that would be a valuable thing to raise at ALGA when it's presented. So I've made a note there, if I'm the one, but whoever, I think that's an important consideration. And thanks, Councillor Anea, for raising that point about essential workers, because often when we think about housing, where a lot of people have ideas of what's around, and critically, so many of our essential workforce are having to travel into our shire from other parts of central Victoria and even as far as Melbourne. So that's an important consideration. Thanks, Councillor Anea. So moving on to item 11.5, which is Notice of Motion 005/2026, protecting the quality and independence of our preventative health initiatives, support for Vic Health. Councillors, do we have a mover for this? Thank you, Councillor. Would you like to introduce this, Councillor?
Right, thank you, Mayor. I feel like I'm talking a lot tonight. Apologies. I'm sure many were shocked to hear of the plans to effectively wrap up Vic Health by our state government. Of particular concern to me is the important work this organisation does in preventative health across a lot of measures, but particularly I guess we can call them politically charged measures with large opposition, namely campaigns around tobacco, vaping, fast food, and these kind of things. In my mind and the mind of many people, it's essential that that this be independent from government departments. Although we've had the same government for a while now, governments do tend to change. So even if you do get a good one who's doing things in good faith, there's no guarantee that continues into the next. So having some arm's length for this important work is vital. I would therefore like to move that Council acknowledges the critical role played by Vic Health, Victoria's world-leading independent health promotion foundation, set up with support across the political spectrum in keeping communities like Mount Alexander healthy, active and well. 2 notes the important preventative health initiatives made available to the Mount Alexander Shire through Vic Health grants and partnerships, including, and Mayor, would it be a problem if I took the explanations as read and just read titles here?
Of course.
Yep. Including Kitchen Garden Program, Active Mount Alexander, Community Pantry Network, Community Meals Project, Wellbeing Economy Research Project, Community-Led Future Proofing, Alcohol Harm Prevention Project, Healthy Schools Project, Choose Tap, Nalderung School-Based Education Support Course and Early Years Education Community of Practice, Parenting in the Modern World Series, Council's Municipal Health and Wellbeing Plan, Healthy Loddon Campaspe initiatives, including Growing in Mount Alexander, Cooking for Change, Edgy Veg. And these are recent projects, and it's not an exhaustive list. I could have gone on and on and on and on. I wanted to list them so that you might recognise something you've benefited from. That's not included in the motion, sorry. 3 notes that for every dollar spent in the public health, early intervention and prevention, $14.30 is saved on future health costs by averting more costly and chronic health issues down the line. 4 notes that effective preventative health campaigns can attract counter-campaigning and lobbying from interest groups, and it is therefore imperative that our preventative health campaigns are kept at arm's length from the government to protect them from political interference. 5 notes the advocacy already undertaken by this organisation, including a letter to Honourable Mary-Ann Thomas, Minister for Health, from Council's Chief Executive Officer. And 6 requests the Mayor write to the Minister for Health, Mary-Ann Thomas, and all state MPs that are representatives for electorates that include Mount Alexander Shire to express the above and to show support for Vic Health's role as an independent body that has the ability to challenge the commercial interests of industries such as tobacco, ultra-processed foods and alcohol that lead to poor health outcomes in our communities. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Anir, thank you. Any objections to this? Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak further to this?
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll read from the letter from our CEO dated 9th of January. Mount Alexander Shire Council has shared a strong and positive relationship with Vic Health for many years and has improved community health and wellbeing outcomes. Council has a dedicated alcohol harm prevention platform on its website, formed an alcohol harm prevention working group with key community members and agencies, delivered drug and alcohol awareness workshops with year levels 10 and 11 at Castlemaine Secondary College, including party safe education, held more alcohol and drug-free youth events, seen our young people produce a video and a digital campaign to raise awareness for alcohol harm. Council has also undertaken a Shire-wide education campaign in primary schools to inform of the harm of vaping and the Children's Sensorium project that came to Castlemaine Art Museum last year. Continuing to quote, in our view, Vic Health has been enormously effective because it's independent, it's prevention focused, mandate, its ability to innovate and its ability to partner directly with communities, researchers and health promotion workforce. And I'd just like to highlight in the statement like this, we're in very good company, and the list of people and organisations who have signed or sent similar letters is a very long one, including organisations like Australian Global Health Alliance, Global Network for Academic Public Health, the Global Network for, the Council for Academic Public Health Institutions, Australasia Network for Health Promotion Foundations, European Public Health Association, AMA, Victorian Council for Social Services, and 5 previous chairs of Vic Health who say this work is done best by an independent agency, is the open letter that they've signed. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. A seconder. Councillor Anir, would you like to speak now?
Thank you,
Or
Mayor.
reserve your right? Thank you.
Oh, hang on, I might reserve my right.
Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Anea.
All right, I just thought I'd try and buy myself some time. Thanks, Councillor Maddock, for speaking about this so far. I agree with everything that you've said. I think there's tremendous value in keeping Vic Health independent, as has been raised by a number of other organisations. And I think the impact that Vic Health has had in our shire, even just over recent years, has been pretty huge. And looking at this list, which I know you've mentioned is not exhaustive, even what is on this list, the things that the programs really and projects that have been supported by Vic Health, they're important ones, and they're ones that may not have been supported by a more government department, because I think the beauty of Vic Health being independent is that they are able to be less political in many ways. And I think, as the season of elections comes upon us again, health needs the consistency that politics does not offer, with the change potentially every 4 years. And there's always something, I think, to kind of trigger people and upset them when it comes to health. Whereas I think what Vic Health is able to provide to communities, and really by working with communities and community health providers, and by being able to offer those quite place-based, tailored projects, it's really special. I think the couple that I'm going to pick out, only because I've been relatively involved in them. One that you mentioned is the kitchen garden programs that run at a number of our primary schools in the Shire. And as I've spoken about before, I spent a couple of years running the kitchen portion of one of these programs at a primary school here. And the value that I saw, demonstrable value that I saw in teaching young children how to grow things in the garden, how to plant seeds, how to pick seeds, how to wash vegetables, and then how to cook with it, and realise that they could be more self-sufficient than they thought they could. It was quite remarkable. And what I always try and point out to people about programs like that are very hands-on and honestly very chaotic. I always needed a bit of a lie down afterwards, but what I saw time and time again was the kids, and it was often young men, who were not very engaged in academic learning and who struggled to sit still in a classroom environment, just thriving in that kind of hands-on learning environment. And, being able to help these young people see a part of themselves that they liked and that they could develop. And I think just that as one example is a really fantastic project. And I know that the dream is to have a kitchen garden program in all of our primary schools across the Shire because of the benefit. Another one I'm just going to pull out because, again, it's been fantastic, is the Parenting in the Modern World series. So this is done in partnership with Delkaya, in partnership with the library. And this is our community health nurse, Bronwyn Grieve, who basically writes a talk, pulls it out of nowhere based on what the demand is in the area. So some of the parent talks recently have been around things like vaping, have been around things like mental health, and one that I attended, which was fantastic, around how to be okay that your child is becoming a teenager, called Before the Hormones Hit the Fan, really set me up very well for having a teenager. I think the last one that's not on this list, but I think is linked because it was a Healthy Loddon Campaspe initiative, and they're all kind of intertwined, is one of my favourite things that has come out of our Shire, the Story Walks, which I am sure have Vic Health branding on them. And I think the success of those, that they've gone national now, just some of these initiatives where someone had a good idea and they were able to get them up and funded is incredible. I think absorbing Vic Health into the Department of Health is not a good idea. And I think, as we can see, you mentioned the open letter with, heaps and heaps, I think over 300 or 400 kind of leaders in this sector saying, this is not a good idea. Its independence is critical. And a lot of it is around that it exists consistently beyond those 4-year political terms. The other things that are mentioned time and time again in these letters are around partnerships with community and trust. And I think we are at a really interesting point, and we notice this as council sometimes, that as soon as something is linked to council, there can be a level of distrust, because there is distrust in government. And we've seen that growing, whereas independent organisations are able to be consistent. They are able to be, they are able to think about things in a way that is not influenced, I think, as easily by big groups, by community sentiment. I think they're able to do things in a much more effective way. And I think what we've seen over the last really only year of some of these very important agencies being defunded or absorbed, and the other ones I'm thinking about, school-funded youth services. This is another one that makes me feel exactly the same, because it's that ability to do the place-based, very targeted intervention and prevention. And I think what really kind of rankles me about this one is this decision is coming at a time where federally and, throughout the world, the Productivity Commission has just said we need to be investing more in health prevention, that it will save lives, that it will save money, that is the right thing to do. For the state government at the same time to go, actually, we're going to take our independent health agency that is, known worldwide for being a leader, that has been going for 38 years, that has brought down the instances of smoking, of skin cancer, of heart disease, has had all these big wins, really put gender-based violence on the map, has done just such a lot of good. Now is the time for us to absorb that into a department that is already not coping. And I think, I was thinking about this and getting myself really worked up about it today, obviously, but I think it's just such a bad time for this decision. And I think it's ill-informed, and I think it's going to be very, very bad for the people who need these kind of services and these kind of programs and projects the most. I think it's a bad time, and I think I hope again when we write them yet another letter that there can be some flexibility here, and maybe even it's just a matter of timing. But now is not the right time. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anea. Councillor Maddock, you have a right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll just be very, very brief. The independence is a big one for me, and I've just got a quote here from the Foundation for Alcohol Research and Education, which, referring to Vic Health, its independence has made it a critical voice in helping to expose how commercial interests can create high-risk environments. And I think while some of these measures aren't so controversial and won't attract sort of pushback, as it will, things like alcohol, where there's just so much money behind it, and it causes such social problems for us, really needs that independence. And then I'll just close with the officer comment here, or a paraphrase of it, which says support for this position from council would be welcomed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor. Well, let's put that to the vote then. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And thank you, Councillors Maddock and Anea, for speaking so fulsomely and passionately about this important motion. So Section 12, urgent special business, we have nil. Confidential items, we have nil. So thanking you, councillors, chief executive officers, representatives of the media, and those watching online. Thank you for coming. At 8:33, I declare the meeting closed.